just to kick it off, we're going to go through just explaining what AI is really. A lot of us have gone through fatigue and just hearing AI every day. If you go on social media, you're going to hear something about AI. And one of the things that I think the key things that I just want to speak about is that AI itself is a technology. What it refers to is an automation of human processes. And it's actually a science that has numerous branches, from robotics to machine learning to large language models, which we are kind of getting used to using. But there is a wealth of technologies. And I like the quotation by a gentleman by the name Richard Campbell, who says, the technology is called artificial intelligence until it's able to do something useful. Then we give it a name. So when people use the technology, which is basically a way of a computer guessing really well what the expected outcome is. So the AI messaging is very loud and unavoidable right now, simply because I think there is so much money that has been poured into AI. If you think about when the concept started, way back in 1956, that's when the term was coined by a gentleman by the name John McCarthy is credited for coining that term. There has been probably $600 billion, maybe more, maybe $1 trillion plus globally poured into AI. So the stakes are very high in terms of the expectation from a governmental point of view all the way down to you and me, because in between that, there's a lot of stakeholders. So going back to 1956, when John McCarthy coined the term, they began research into AI, and it grew into a whole department at MIT. So one of the key things I want to note by stating that it started in 1956 is the rest of the world has been focused on growing artificial intelligence technology for a long time. And in Africa, we are yet to kind of get our footing around how we're going to use it in our various sectors, right? So it's very important for us, and this is why we started this workshop, for us to catch up. And the great thing is that AI lets us catch up. One of the things also that I wanted to bring up is that popular culture, ever since the term was coined, has created a backdrop of this apocalyptic future, right? Where robots take over and AI is like eliminates the human race, right? And the reality is, when we're asking what the future of AI is really, we actually don't really know. But there are a lot of very smart people who are creating policies, who are doing research into human interaction with AI. There's a gentleman by the name Dave Shapiro who's like quite vocal about what he thinks, where he thinks AI is going to go and what the future looks like. And good thing is, it's not all doom and gloom. So I've got like just a couple of tips before I introduce our keynote speaker that I wanted to get into. Of course, we've all heard the term artificial AI, and we've seen a lot of different tools. Some of us have used them. But the important thing is here, we must obsess over the work, not the tool. And I think with every technological advance, the work is what gives us the expected outcome and the objective. So if we spend too much time, and I've fallen down this rabbit hole of like every tool that I see a Google ad or a Meta ad for, I'm like clicking and I'm like, what is this? What is this? What is this? But I then got to the point where I started applying it in my own systems. And that's when I realized that the work is important and AI is a tool that helps us do the work. The second thing is we shouldn't be afraid to learn. And I'm glad we are all here to learn. And this is an attitude that everyone has to have, because the important thing to realize, it's new for most of us. The concept of using AI and interacting with a machine like you would a human is a new concept, and it's very weird. Even though there are people who predicted it coming many years ago, we're talking about almost 70 years ago, it's still very strange to talk to a machine. But we use AI to augment our strengths, and then we fill the gaps of our weaknesses. And for me personally, one of my key weaknesses that I always kind of suffered from is kind of the ability to write stories, to write ideas, to write thoughts. And ever since I started using AI, initially I used it just to straight up say, "Hey, write me an article or a thought experiment about this thing," and then to write the whole thing, and then I'd edit it. But now what I've found is that AI is more useful as an editor, where when I put down my thoughts, it's correcting my spellings, which is great. Word used to do that. But what it's also doing is providing a deeper insight, almost like a person, a real editor would. And it's giving me feedback that lets me dig deep into my own thoughts. So the writers out there, AI is a great tool for you to use that. And that applies to so many different sectors because nobody is good at everything, right? And whatever the places that you feel like, I want to do this, but I actually don't know, AI can instruct you how to do it. AI can assist you not only in learning, but in creating step-by-step systems of how to do the thing you want to accomplish. So really the limitation here is about what you want to achieve. And that's the key goal, right? What do you want to do with AI? And how do you want to grow yourself as a person? How do you want to grow your business? And once you have that idea, ask ChatGPT, ask Gemini, whatever AI platform you're using, the general purpose chat AIs like ChatGPT, the question that comes to your head that you would ask a mentor or a teacher, ask AI and then begin that discussion because it unlocks your learning. And one of the last things I'll say here is that AI presents an opportunity for us to grow businesses at an exponential rate, to like put out ideas at a rate that has never really been seen before. AI is the possibility of one of the biggest product market opportunities of our generation, meaning that already we are seeing hundreds of products come to market, software products. And even I've seen a few product design, physical products that were designed with the help of AI. And in the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be such an accelerated growth of businesses, unlike unprecedented, like we've never seen before. And this is going to create such a global shift of wealth and power that we are yet to see. Like I said, we don't really know what's going to happen, but it's going to be a phenomenal shift in power dynamics. So I would encourage every attendee here that as we discuss and we learn, if there's anything you wanted to create, even if it's not within your wheelhouse of skill, you can now create it faster, bigger, better, cheaper than ever before. The realm of possibilities is immense. So image generation, which is one of the main, because Wada primarily is an art collective, right? Image generation is one of those things that outside of the ethical consideration about where the data was sourced for it, it's something that we all kind of use from time to time, or we could potentially use because it's a great way of idea mapping to just see what the thing would look like. And it's just a matter of prompting it. And we created a guide that you can download on the Wada Collective site. We'll share the link shortly in the chat. So for those people who want to download that. And then before I hand it over to Batsi, I just wanted to thank the people who helped us put this together today, and that's the Austrian Consulate, the Austrian Honorary Consulate. Always a great mentor, a great kind of ally to have on our side. Drift Studio, which did all the visuals, and then the Dream Hub North, which is a great place to shop for a variety of trinkets. Like if you just want to go out and buy yourself something nice, you're guaranteed to find it there. Devane PR, which helped us set up here at the Mikos. We are actually broadcasting live from the Hyatt Regency the Mikos in Harare, and then Brandeis, which sponsored some of our physical banners. So it is my pleasure now to introduce my good friend and a design and thought leader from uh, Zimbabwe, born and raised in Zimbabwe, and is currently in the United Arab Emirates, Batsi Madzonga.
Amazing. Thanks, Chamu. That really set the stage for what we're going to talk about today. So let me share my screen and just let me know, see it. All right, thanks for the confirmation. Cool, thanks everyone. So my name is Batsi. Like Chamu said, Zimbabwean living in Dubai at the moment, Al Hilal Bank in Abu Dhabi, where I was leading a team of designers there. And when I got hired, my role was really to reimagine the app that they had to what's on the left and redesign it to what you see on the right. So I was brought in to lead that transformation of their digital platform. Before that, I worked mostly in advertising most of my career. So before going into design leadership, like I said, I had a design agency with Chamu. Then I went to South Africa, worked at ad agencies where we worked on a lot of creative campaigns. The one you're looking at is one proactive campaign that I worked on for DSTV. And in my spare time, I also worked on projects that I found interesting. So a few years ago, I was working on a autonomous vehicle design, which I guess people would call flying drones, I guess flying cars. Because I just found the space interesting, about how you could transform urban mobility using this medium. So I just found it interesting. So I do things that, that I find interesting. At the moment, I'm head of design at Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank. And over there, it's a similar story where they hired me to basically redesign the entire mobile application. So they had a banking app that was about 7 years old at the time I joined. And I've since then grown the team, grown our design capabilities within the bank, set up things like animation guidelines, design systems for the mobile app. And we're now actually supporting the whole group. So Abu Dhabi Islamic Bank is in the UAE, but we also operate in 3 or 4 other countries around the world. And the work my team does is actually now starting to affect all of those categories. And recently, I've also written a couple of design books. So the one on the left is a framework for design called the Ubuntu Design Framework. And I wrote this about 2 years ago with the sole intent of showing what Africa can bring to the table with regards to product design, which is what I work on. Because a lot of the principles that we deal with are Western principles and kind of Western theories of design. And I've always found myself drawing upon my African heritage when it comes to design. So this book was really meant to introduce the concept of community building and Ubuntu within the context of product design. I was fortunate enough. Well, I love this page because this quote actually is one of the things that really spurred me on to do this. And it's from the African Journal of Social Work from 2020. And it's essentially saying that we should promote African knowledge, African theories and models and frameworks. And this is essentially what the Ubuntu framework was meant to do. I was fortunate enough to launch the book in Vienna, Austria in 2023. So I presented this framework to a room full of designers from Europe. And what was interesting was it was very well received because it's a completely different outlook on how design teams around the world design. it's for them, it's more individualistic, user-centric, but with the Ubuntu framework, it's more community-driven. I've spoken around the world with regards to design. And most recently, last year, I went to Denmark and Copenhagen to talk about exactly what we're talking about today, which is what AI is doing to the design industry. So I'm going to share part of what I spoke about in Copenhagen with you guys today. So my team at the moment is leveraging AI quite a lot at the bank where I work. So I've got currently 5 verticals within the team. First one is design operations, which basically helps us manage the design team. So the first and the third thing there, which is design technology, and I suppose the second one as well. So the first 3 are using AI quite a bit, because UX writing, we all use ChatGPT to write now. Design technology, we're using AI to actually build tools for the design team. So things that would naturally usually take us 3 hours now, for example, take us 20 minutes because we're building tools that help us become more efficient. So we're growing the team and actually starting to use AI to augment what my team does at the bank. So onto the subject of AI. So all the work I showed you is at risk to be disrupted by AI, and a lot of it already has. I always give the example of how AI can replace creatives, as in 2023, beginning of 2023, I was meant to hire a UX writer because we needed a writer in our team. But that's the same time AI writing tools really became mature and popular. So instead of hiring a writer, I onboarded a writing tool that basically gave each of my designers a writer right in their pocket, right? So all of my designers now had the capability of producing production-ready content instead of relying on one person to do all the writing for the entire bank. Because at the time, I only had budget to hire one person. Right, as organizations, you know how it is. We can't hire usually what we need. So that's an example of how I could have hired someone, but we had to leverage AI to actually improve the working model we had versus a single person that could have potentially been a bottleneck. So to understand AI in its current state, I'll go a little bit into the past and talk about the types of AI and where AI has been. And after looking at that, try to map out what's in our future. And then ultimately, I hope to give you guys some actionable tools you guys can actually start to use in your day-to-day lives and in your creative projects that you're working on. So hopefully you'll have some takeaways at the end for how you can actually supercharge your workflows with AI. So I'll start with quickly types of AI. So the 3 main categories of AI that I kind of like to single out. The first one is narrow intelligence, which basically means an AI model that's trained to do a very specific thing. So this could be a model that's trained to play chess, a model that's trained to scan or detect tumors in X-rays and things like that. So these are AI systems that are trained to do a very, very specific task. ChatGPT falls more under general intelligence because you can ask it about science, poetry, mathematics, even you ask it to create art and photography and it'll do that, right? So it's generally intelligent. And general intelligence is on a scale, it's just as intelligent as the smartest humans. So if you ask the smartest and brightest poet to write a poem, ChatGPT can rival that person's work, right? So it's generally intelligent. So interestingly, Sam Altman wrote last year about what he called artificial superintelligence. And what's interesting about superintelligence is it's very hard to define because by definition, it's smarter than any definition a human could come up with. Right? This is a system that I always say it can answer questions that we don't even know to ask, right? It's got answers to things we don't even know to ask it. It's exponentially more intelligent than us. And this is essentially the road we're on to get to super intelligence. And to understand what's in our future with all of these different types of AI, I always start with the past. So we're all familiar with the Stone Age, Bronze Age, and medieval ages. And the game really changed when we moved to the industrial age, where we started having production lines, locomotives, the Ford Model T, and with the first cars, right, on the production line. That's when we really started seeing machines take the role of mass labor. Currently, we were living in the information and digital age for the longest time. And a lot of us basically grew up in this age where we had the internet, we had computers, and we moved from the industrialists being the massive lever in our economies to knowledge workers being the massive lever in our economies. Yeah, so we moved from industrialists to knowledge workers. What we all are today are knowledge workers because we use our brain to sit by a computer, type on a keyboard, and we create value, right? That's the value we bring, is in our brains, right? The knowledge we have over our lifespans, over our careers, is basically what makes us valuable in the marketplace. So by definition, we are knowledge workers versus industrialists whose value really came from their physical labor. So we're moving from the industrial age and the information age to now being in the intelligence age. And all that means is where with the advent of the internet, information is what we basically got access to, right? You could log onto your computer and you had a vast array of information right at your fingertips. What's happening now with the intelligence age is you can plug into your computer and you have a vast array of intelligence at your fingertips. That's the main difference. We're going from a society and economies where knowledge workers are the rock stars to now all of a sudden AI automation is the name of the game. So you're finding a lot of companies are looking massively within the AI strategies for how they can use AI to cut costs. With, unfortunately, most of the time that means cutting your workforce and leveraging AI to automate the things that knowledge workers traditionally did. What is also interesting is we're moving from decades of linear growth to all of a sudden now we have exponential growth. And the example I always give to illustrate this is Google has an AI lab called DeepMind. And within that, they had a project they were running for how they can revolutionize material sciences. So if you just Google Google and material science, I think you'll see a few articles there where over the course of human history, we had basically around 200,000 stable materials. So stable materials are what we basically use to make everything that we have in the world, right? And we had about 200,000 of them that we had discovered. And within a couple of weeks, Google's DeepMind was able to synthesize over 2 million more stable materials. So we went again from linear growth to exponential. So who knows where these materials and what these materials can unlock for humanity, right? Because we went from just knowing 200,000 to now having millions more. And stories like this are just another Tuesday in the world of AI, right? We're getting a lot of advancements, a lot of breakthroughs in materials, in medicine, in technology, obviously, you name it. It's very hard for us to catch up with the world as it's changing because we're used to linear growth, and that's how our brain essentially functions. So it's very hard for us to answer the question, will AI replace people? Because we're used to a linear paradigm and we're now living in an exponential world, right, where change is happening super fast. And if you ask anyone that knows, for example, Mo he worked at Google. I'm forgetting his title now, but he was a senior exec at Google. He now runs his own AI company. And he rightly says that in the intelligence age, knowledge workers are the first people to get disrupted. Because obviously AI is far more capable than we are. It's faster, it knows more, and it has a vast kind of foundation of knowledge to draw from. So everything from art, poetry, photography, where 3D animation, advertising, copywriting, all of those things are now being done by AI at a much faster rate and a much higher quality than some of the best people in the world that do these things. And what's interesting is it's getting better every day, right? So the version that we have today is the worst version that there'll ever be. It keeps getting better day in, day out. So it's important for us as creative just to take a step back and try to extrapolate a few months into the future and then from an exponential growth point of view. We're no longer dealing with a technology that takes 10 years to mature. Things are moving at the pace of weeks now. And if you're a knowledge worker, if your primary source of income is sitting at your computer, typing and sending emails or using Photoshop, etc., then we need to really start to evaluate what our place in the world will be as these technologies get better. So on that note, I'll talk about some of the things that we can do as creatives to stay relevant, to earn a living, to make some passive income on the side. And I'll talk about this from the perspective of some of the things that I'm doing. Because if you ask me questions, then I obviously have better answers because these are things that I'm actually doing myself. So what can we do about it? So we've heard this a million times, right? Use AI, don't lose to AI. But what's important to note with this phrase is we're not just saying use AI for your creative endeavors or for your designs or for your websites. We're saying use AI to its fullest potential. So when you hear this phrase, use AI, the people that use AI will win and the people that don't use AI will lose. What that is primarily, or what that should represent, is your coming of age to use this technology for everything that it can potentially be used for, right? So it's not just generating graphics or making movies, it's building softwares and building companies as well. So I'll talk about one of my favorite tools at the moment, which is Lovable. Just a quick poll for the people on the call. How many of you have not heard of Lovable? So if you haven't heard of Lovable, just unmute and just say, I haven't heard of it. Okay. So I'm guessing that some of you have and some of you haven't. So what's interesting with Lovable is it is the fastest growing company in human history when it comes to this metric. So it went from $1 million annual recurring revenue to $100 million annual recurring revenue in the fastest time in history. So it grew faster than Facebook, faster than actual OpenAI itself. And it's one of the most exciting companies on the planet right now. And all they enable is the ability for people to build software using Lovable. So the head of design from Lovable actually says that, he says something funny, that they are building the last piece of software. And essentially what he means is it's, with the way things are going, this is the last piece of software that human beings will write, because it's a piece of software that creates other pieces of software much better than any human could ever do it and much faster than any human could ever do it. So what we could potentially be looking at is the last piece of software that human beings write. And currently, the CEO of Lovable was saying they churn out about 200 companies per month are launched using Lovable. So you can just see the massive scale that this unlocks. And I'll give you an example of one such company that I'm building with one of my partners. So how it works is it's a vibe coding platform. You might have heard of vibe coding. So you go on here and you just chat to it and tell it what you want to build, and it builds it. It's really that simple. So you could tell it, build me a website like Airbnb, and then it just builds you a website like Airbnb. It all does all the debugging. It fixes its errors. You can upload pictures to tell it to make the website look like this picture, and it'll do it. So it's a really great platform to learn and start to use, because it's as simple as it sounds. It still needs a bit of creativity to make it work the way you want it to work, which is where I think designers are uniquely positioned to thrive. Because for years, we've been honing our skills for this very task, right? To build things that people love to use. So something that someone who's not a designer builds won't nearly be as good as something that a designer builds, because we've got that eye and we know how to make software that people love to use. So I really encourage all the creatives, everyone here, check out Lovable and build something. And the key thing with this is to develop that strategic problem-solving muscle that creatives have been building all our lives, right? As a creative, all you do essentially day in, day out is solve problems. Those problems could be creative problems, where the company that wants a logo, they give you a color palette and say, make me a logo for this company. I want it green and orange, and you have to solve that problem, right? So what's important is beyond that to start building critical thinking skills as well. So it's not just enough to be able to solve problems. You need to also know which problems to solve. Yeah, so you need to critically think and build apps that people actually need. So I wrote down 5 things here based on some of the research I've done around this subject. Again, because I'm trying to do the same thing, right? I'm trying to build a company using Lovable. And these 5 things are really important if you're going to do this. First of all, realize that about 90% of the platforms people build die because you're building them just because you can, not because people want them, right? So that's why a lot of these projects fail. You're building something just because you can, but not because people actually need that problem to be solved. So it's important to solve real existing problems. It's not enough just to be fast. You need to be strategic as well. Validate your idea before you even start building it, right? Ask yourself critical questions. Ask people in the marketplace that need the product you want to build, whether they actually need it, what problems they need to solve. But a really cool thing is the last one there, where boring problems are the ones that make money. It's something that's age-old truth really in business, that it's usually the boring things that usually make money. So don't focus on flashy ideas that you just build for the fun of it, but try and build things that people actually need. So the tech stack that I typically use to build an end-to-end software platform that people can go online and actually subscribe and start paying to use is what you see here. So I use Lovable to build it, ChatGPT to help me refine some of the prompts, come up with ideas, project management, that kind of thing. I use Amazon Web Services to host. So AWS is great just for hosting, but it also has quite a lot of machine learning modules that you can plug into your website. And I'll give you a quick example of one that I'm using in a project I'm working on. 21st Dev is that fourth icon over there. And that basically just gives you built components that you can plug into your Lovable project. So I just recommend you Google 21st Dev. It's a website, and just see what's on there. It's pretty cool. And then lastly, obviously, people need to be able to pay you for the software you build. So connecting your platform to Stripe so you can actually accept credit card payments, etc., would be the last step there, because you need to actually obviously earn some money from your projects, right? So this is an example of something I'm building with a co-founder of mine. It's a platform that we use in usability testing. So if you're designing something and you want to test it, we run user tests, right? But what this software does is you can upload a video from your user testing session, and it does facial analysis and sentiment analysis to actually scan people's faces and reveal how they were truly feeling in those moments. Because we've always known that user testing, just listening to what a user is saying while they're going through your prototypes and your designs, is not enough. Because a lot of the times they say things that they don't actually mean, or they just want to make you feel good about what you've built. And things like moments of frustration and moments of delight and joy that appear due to micro expressions on their face, those things that you can't really pick up as a user tester. So we're building a platform where you can upload a video, and it uses Amazon recognition to actually deeply scan a user's face during the video and give you insights for how they were feeling while they were going and using your platform. And all of that I was able to build using this tool stack, right? So you've got Lovable that's building most of the platform, and then I'm connecting it to AWS to do the facial recognition and host the videos themselves, etc. So it's started about, I think now it's 3 weeks ago, started 3 weeks ago, and it's pretty much all built. So what would have usually taken you about a year and then some, and tens of thousands of dollars to pay people to build, basically took me $40 to build. Because Lovable, you pay monthly subscription and then you vibe code until you build what you're building. So within about 3 weeks, I was able to actually build it, and all it took really was about $40. So you can see the massive value that AI is actually unlocking, and what the CEO of Lovable said is true, where 200 companies are being born every month from Lovable, and this is how you could do it. Another use case for something a little bit more light and fun that I'm working on is the ability to tell stories. So traditionally, stories have been told with short films and movies and animated cartoons and things like that. Regular people didn't have access to things like that, right? It's super expensive to try and hire a studio to make an animated film. But what's happening now with AI, with generative AI, and now with animation is you could use generative AI to make your characters and your scenes and then actually animate them as well. So I'm working on a short film, and I'll show you the workflow that I'm going through. So I'm working on a short film called Becoming, and it's the story of how I went from being a student in Cape Town to now being a design leader in the UAE and everything in between. And I'll show you how I'm actually going about doing this. So I started off by building the character that was going to be the protagonist in the story. And once I'd done that, I went through these, essentially these 4 steps. There's a few in between, but these are the main 4 steps. So I worked with ChatGPT to write a screenplay, which is basically chunks of my stories. So scene 1 will be Harare, me growing up. Scene 2, me studying in Cape Town, going back to Harare to start an agency. Scene 4, back to Joburg, etc. So it's just following my journey in life and writing the prompts I'm going to need to illustrate each of the scenes within the scenes, right? So ChatGPT helped me do this. And then I used that screenplay to storyboard. So I then generated images that were frame by frame, each scene that I wanted to represent. Once I had the storyboard, I then animated it. So what you see here are a few snippets of some of the animations. So the top one is when I was actually with Chamu at the agency, and me surfing for the first time in Cape Town, going back to Harare, for example, and then running the agency. This is me commuting to a client probably. So animating all of the scenes that I generated, And then it comes the fun part, which is the editing. So this is where I take all of those pieces together, sound design them with snippets I'm downloading from Artlist. It's great tool for getting audio effects and music. So I'm downloading audio, and then I'm layering it together with my animations to create the short film. So I'll show you the first 1 minute 30 of the movie as it is now. Okay, that is the first 1 minute 30 of the movie. So the reason I'm doing this is quite interesting, where I was asking myself in 2025, why should I still have a PDF, a CV that's a PDF, right? Because a PDF doesn't really tell my story at all. It just tells you where I've worked. So I thought it would be interesting to, when I'm looking for a job, to submit not just a PDF of my CV, but a short film of my journey as well. So AI is actually unlocking us to be able to storytell in ways that were previously impossible. I also have a project I've worked on called Dylan Loves Shona and Ariana. Dylan discovers Shona and Ariana loves Shona, learns Shona. So this is a kids book series to teach children around the world Shona. So my children, I have 2 kids. They've lived outside Zim their whole lives, so they don't really speak Shona, right? And this is not a problem that's just mine, but it's most Zimbabweans around the world are facing this issue where their kids are disconnecting from the language. And when you disconnect from the language, you disconnect from the culture, because there's a lot of cultural nuance that's baked into our Shona language, right? So I made a book series that we're selling online. And I just run Google ads and Facebook ads, and we published about 9 books at the moment. And just every month, those ads generate sales of the books. So it's on autopilot now. So this is something that you could do to earn some money on the side. Just think of a problem to solve, make a product, put it online, run some ads, and just leave it on autopilot. Like I said, we've got about 9 books at the moment. You can go to iloveshona.com if you want to check out the books and what the project is about. And besides project for myself, I've started now working on a project that will help other people. So using AI to help other people. So my wife and I were talking a few months ago, and we realized that we're fortunate enough to be living in Dubai, and pretty much the whole world at our fingertips living here. And there are a lot of kids back home that don't have that luxury. And when light bulb moment came, when we watched a video of a lady called Gertrude Mache. She was doing a TED talk, and she spoke about how in P3 rural schools in Zim, costs a child $15 to attend school for the whole year, because it's $5 a term. So yeah, so that got us thinking, because like I mentioned, I had a small business where I was selling kids books online for learning Shona. And using that same model, I could actually sell books that for every book sold actually puts a kid through school for an entire year. So this is a project we're working on now. Our aim at the moment is to put 2,000 kids through school every year through this project. So watch this space. I'll keep Chamu informed about how it's going. Then I think he'll update you at future events. But this is an example of how you can use AI not just to obviously edify your own life, but actually change other people's lives in ways that previously were unthinkable. Because in a lot of people's lives, very little can actually go a long way. So that's the project we're working on. It's called Ariana's and Dylan's Marvelous Rotary World Tour. We're working on it with the Rotary clubs. So the idea is to get minimum of 20 Rotary clubs around the world to share their stories. And we'll package that in a book that we'll then sell around the world and raise some money for kids to go to school. Would that be fantastic? So ultimately, my message is just about intentionality, right? All of these things that I'm working on personally in my own life, or the uses of AI I've introduced in my design team at work, all of it was intentional. I did the research, I learned how to use these tools, and I came up with ideas for how I can actually use these tools to help other people, but also to help the organization I work, but also to earn passive income for myself on the side. So you have to be intentional. You have to go out there and try and learn how to do these things, because the world has changed. Like Chamu was saying, we are living in a time where untold economic growth is happening. Untold change is happening right now. And you don't want to be left behind. You want to ride that wave right now, learn how to use these tools, learn how to build something, because the first thing you build will fail, but the fifth thing might not. And that's the journey I'm on, to try and use AI to build software that I put online and actually build small businesses, because you never know which one becomes a $1 million business. So I'll end with this. Viktor Frankl's infamous quote: when we're no longer able to change a situation, like right now, we can't change the fact that AI will replace us, given our status as knowledge workers. And if we can't change that situation, then ultimately we're challenged to change ourselves. Thank you. I think we got through it. Awesome.